Hello and good evening. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our introduction session about the AWS Cloud Developer course by Monolith School. Let's wait for a couple of minutes for everyone who wants to join us. And while we're waiting, I'm going to share with you some useful things regarding this session. Let me know if you can hear me well and if you can see me and if you can see the presentation. You should see a bunch of sloths running, flying in the, let's say, superhero um, costumes. And it should be something like EPAM, intra-session, AWS School, AWS Cloud Developer course on the screen. Okay, I'm not sure if I share these links like this. Oh, kind of mess. Okay. I think maybe let's do it one by one in this case. So by joining the first link, you can register on this course, on this exact course. The second link is for in our Discord channel. It's a place where you can seek for help, and there you can help your fellow students, where you can find all the information regarding this course, all the announcements, and so on. So yeah, here you go. And the third one would be in our repository. This is a repository which contains all of the tasks which we should talk during this course and which we should pass to get the design certificate. Here you go. I think the rest I can send a bit later. Yeah. Okay. So already 3 minutes we are online, and I think we are good to go to start. So hello everyone. My name is Anton, and let me introduce myself a bit better. So I'm working as a systems engineer at the EPAM Georgia company, and as my daily routine, I'm looking for a bunch of servers which run in some kind of applications with different setups, with different technologies, and my stack looks like this. So it's an AWS as a cloud provider for our solutions. Python in case I need some kind of automations, which is not implemented worldwide yet. Jenkins to run the rest of the automations to provision all the infrastructure and so on. Terraform, it's a kind of technology which you can use to provision the resources on the cloud provider networks. So for example, you can create the servers, you can create the routers, you can create almost everything actually in using the Terraform. And the chef on the other side is the tool which I'm using to provision the applications on my network. Kubernetes for some of the solutions, and especially for Jenkins. Ansible as a replacement for Chef, and as my, let's say, hobby, I'm running the MicroPython scripts on my microcontrollers and just enjoying how these little things work and talking with our, let's say, environment and with each other. If you want to connect, please feel free to find and touch me in the LinkedIn. So there's the QR code you can find in the upper right side of the screen. And today, and for the upcoming, it will be 2 or 3 months or something like this, I'll be your guide to the AWS world. On this slide, I want to show you and mention the modules from which consists in our Rolling Scopes AWS Cloud Developer course. So first of all, it's Cloud Introduction, and which will be held actually today together with the introduction session. I'll briefly explain you what cloud computing is and how can they benefit from using it, and how it actually works, how can they deploy it, and where can they do it. Second module will be serving SPA. This is the module where we will talk about how can the host in our static web page, static, let's say, application in the clouds. Next, we will talk about a bit about serverless API. So how can they leverage the in our application using AWS API service? And moving forward, we'll talk about the integration with NoSQL database. And AWS have an awesome solution for this one. It's called DynamoDB. And we will try to implement this NoSQL database in our application. Next, we will talk about the integration with the S3 bucket. S3 bucket actually is just a file storage. So it's a place like let's say Dropbox, where you can place the files and then use them in your applications. And you can benefit much more if you're running your application inside the AWS and running the S3 bucket, especially. Next, we will talk about asynchronous microservices communication. In this model, we will talk about how can we make in our application the asynchronous. So in case we have, let's say, plenty of requests from our customers, and we need to produce all of them, but in some special order. So we will talk about which tools AWS provide us to solve these issues. For sure, we'll talk about the authorization. How can we implement the authorization in our application and implement it especially on the AWS? Next, we will talk about the integration with the SQL database, and it will be necessary for us if we have a lot of structured data, and we would like to store all this data inside the AWS. For sure, we will also talk about the containerization. I think containerization nowadays is a must. So, and most of you should be already knowledge about what containerization is. But yeah, surely we will talk about it, and we will try to containerize in our application and run it not only in the we've used in the serverless pattern, but we'll also try to containerize it and deploy it as a container in our AWS account. And last but not least, we will talk about how can we make in our the backend part of an application talk to the front end part of our application. And yeah, it would be, I think, quite interesting journey for us. And let's have a look at the structure of our application. So actually, this application is already written, is already available in the GitHub. So feel free to just get this application and try to understand what's happening inside. Because when first time I've been holding this course, I was a bit surprised. But what I'll need to at least what I'll need to have at least basic knowledge about the Node.js. But this application is written in the Node.js, and it's kind of online shop or something like this, where we can sell us something, where we can fill in our cart and make the order from this cart, and so on. So if I'm not shared, but I'm sure I'm still not shared with you. Okay, but actually, you can find this application in the link of our GitHub repository for this course. Yeah, you can just have a look at this one and try to understand what's happening inside to be able to understand how it would work on the AWS cloud. But from module to module, we will try to meet with you and try to have a lecture sessions each week where I will explain you each part of this schema, and where I will try to explain you which resource and how you should run it. And this is a brief explanation of how an hour course will look like. So first of all, we will have just 10 tasks. And actually, the first one is just a test. So you are already feel free to go and solve this test. And the rest nine of them is tasks where you will need to deploy the existing application in the AWS, leveraging the serverless pattern. But we will talk about serverless a bit later, but still, yeah. So you should understand that no application will run without the necessity of maintaining any servers or something like this. So it will be just an application inside the AWS, which is running in its own pace without the necessity of any security patches or any updates or something like this. So it will just live its own life. Each task will take something about a week or two. I think on the 9th and 10th task will take 2 weeks because we're a bit complicated. And just to take your time and to understand what's happening inside, so we decided to make them for 2 weeks. But the rest of them would be only 1 week. So, and as I already mentioned, so the first one will be just a test where you should go and click on the buttons, and that's it. So, during this test, actually take your time and just read and try to understand. Try to understand the question. Maybe try to Google it actually, and use the ChatGPT or whatever you want. But just try to understand and make sure that you understood what you clicked and why did this answer is the correct one. Next thing is a cross-check approach. So some of you maybe already launched about how the cross-check works, but for the rest of you, so during this course, for all of the students, we will distribute the tasks for almost each week, as I already mentioned, except the first one. And for the rest of them, we will have the tasks. Whenever you submit in your task, you will be in the list of the student who passed this particular task. And if you passed it, someone should check your task. And on the other hand, you should also check someone else's task. So it's actually important, because if you will not check someone's task, you will get 0 points for your task, even if it was checked and everything was all right inside of this one. If you don't create the cross check from your end, you will get the 0 points. So pay attention to this one, and later on I will show you how it looks like in the School application. And I think also I will share documentation about this one with you a bit later in the Discord channel. So next one is workshops. We are already preparing some workshops from the AWS, which will help you to dive a bit deeper in some topics. These workshops will be in the same topic as the topic of the current week. So, for example, let's go to the previous slide. Okay, one more. So if you are talking about serverless API, so this workshop will be held about something serverless, or maybe something about the API in the AWS. So, and what is workshops actually? So the workshops is a place where AWS provides the accounts for us, and together with some mentor, we will try to solve some real life tasks. And why did it cool? Actually, just because you don't need to spend your own money or don't have any other expenses to passing these workshops. So you're just taking the account from the AWS and touching all these resources. These resources sometimes may be costly and so on, but yeah, it's actually a very good option to get a hands-on experience and try to understand how AWS works beside from some basic functionality. So if you're talking about some a bit more challenging, difficult, or something just special, let's say. Next one is a Discord channel, and actually it's one of my favorite points of these courses, because in these Discord channels you can find the community of the people which are eager to knowledge, as eager as you. So if you can help to someone, please go ahead. And if someone asks any question, help him if you can, if you want. And actually, this Discord channel is a good place to seek for help. So if you're struggling on something, please don't be shy and don't, I don't know. So don't spend too much time on the Google and especially on the ChatGPT. Just go ahead and go to the Discord channel and ask a question. It's most likely that someone is already solved it and will be very happy to help you with some particular questions, with some particular issues which you may face. And it's very cool that we have a community, because from time to time, these people may help you in any other ways. And one more thing worth mentioning, but if you are, let's say, active enough, so you'll be granted the Rolling Scopes activist role. I think it's such an honor to have a nickname with a different color, and this is it's just showing that you can help and you want to help, and it's really cool, I think, in my opinion. So go ahead, use Discord channel and leverage it as much as you can. So, and actually, the second point is related to the previous one. So, seek for help and help each other in the Discord channel. It will be really appreciated from the AWS school and from your fellow students. And as I think I already mentioned, but we will try, and okay, I promise I will have the weekly lectures about our tasks, and I will try to explain you what is expected from you to achieve from each particular task for each particular week, for sure. So let's move on to the next slide. And this is the agenda actually for an hour. Today's, let's say, session about the test task. So we will talk about what is cloud computing and what AWS stands for, how to deploy in AWS, types of deployment, and what is especially AWS IAM, because in my opinion, it's the first resource which you are facing when you are starting to doing something in the AWS. And at this point, I think it's the most important resource in the AWS. And then we'll talk a bit about the modules task, because it already have few, not mandatory, but still. And in the end, we will have the Q&A session where I will try to answer all of the questions which we will have in the chat. So actually, yeah, feel free to ask all of the questions in the chat if you have any. Let's move on. So what clouds is? If we're talking about the applications, you already have an option to just deploy your application on your local laptop or maybe you have your kind of old PC and you set it up as a server or something like this, and you always have an option to deploy your application right inside of this machine and make it available to the public internet. No, in case you have a public IP address, so to make it accessible, but you still maybe have some other options instead of public IP server, some services which may try to help you to expose your application to the outer world. And this type of the, let's say, deployments called on-site. So this is kind of deployment where you deploy your application on some physical server, and this physical server is is under your management. So you're responsible to run security patches, to clean it, ventilation, to have a look if everything is okay with the processor, random access memory, or just maybe hardware, or just whatever. So you're responsible for this server and this application, for all of it. And then they have a type of deployment which called IaaS, so infrastructure as a service. If you're talking about the infrastructure as a service, you can think about it as your friend has a server, and he don't need the server right now, so it's just free. So, and he said, okay, so you can go ahead and just deploy your scripts, deploy your application on my server, but you should pay me some money. And this is actually how AWS works. So you're just paying money and using someone else's server. This is how it looks like. And this is called infrastructure as a service. Next, they have platform as a service. Talking about platform as a service, I think it's the most complicated thing from the rest of them, because it's like I don't know if you are familiar with Kubernetes, but Kubernetes is kind of a tool used to manage your containers. And you can just come to the AWS and say, okay, I just want to run my Kubernetes cluster, but I want to take care about the nodes, about the, once again, security patches and so on. And AWS will say to you, so, okay, sure, I have the platform and you can just use it. So you're just paying for this particular platform. So you don't have any servers or any software to manage. You will just have the Kubernetes itself. I didn't manage to think about any more maybe understandable example. Yeah, but maybe Kubernetes is a good one. And the last one is software as a service. But I think the most of you is knowledge about this one. It's like, let's say, Dropbox, or I don't know, can they call the Windows license as a software as a service? Yeah, but it's just something like this. So you're just getting the software and it's just running on your PC, and you're just paying for the license, and so nothing else. And let's have a look, I think, at the next slide, where we can try to understand what and how AWS, which resources and how AWS provides us. So as you can see here, we are not talking about the on-site deployments, because if it's your option, so you don't need to go to the AWS especially. But if you're talking about the infrastructure as a service, the best example I think is an Amazon EC2 instance. So it's just a server, just a piece of computing, a piece of computing resources, which you're renting from the AWS, and you're using it as you want. So you can just install the I don't know, MySQL database, or you can just run your application, which is standalone and don't need any other services. Or maybe you can run both. You can run your application with the MySQL database alongside. So you can do actually whatever you want with this one. And in this case, once again, you'll benefit from this one just because you don't need to run any security patches or any patching on your virtual machine. Okay, actually, yeah, security patches will be your duty. No, but you will not need to think about what's happening with your physical server. And um, actually, holding your physical server is kind of costly things because you always need to think about the cooling, about the humidity inside your server room, and so on. So, and not always we need in our application running 24 hours, 7 days a week. So maybe in our application is for some, let's say, special occasion, like I don't know, actually just a special occasion. So, and I mentioned you need this application running only on the business days and only on the working hours. And in this case, you can just make your scripts, which will be responsible to create this EC2 instance for this particular hours. And you will pay not just 24/7. You will pay just for an hours, which your instance will be running with your application. But actually, going further, they also have the platform as a service. And yeah, in this case, it's such a good example. I think it's a container service. So, for example, relational databases. But first, we will talk non-relational. Okay, yeah, let's talk about the relational databases. So this is a place where we can just create in our database and don't care about the virtual machine at all. So we will have just the access to the database, which will be created and provisioned, and all of the security patches and so on will be on the AWS shelters. So we'll be responsible for all of this. And you'll be responsible just to make sure that your database running as expected and you have all of the necessary tables that you have. And in the end, we also have the managed services. As I already mentioned, Kubernetes, I'm not sure if it's on the list. Yeah, but still, we already have the AWS S3 bucket and DynamoDB. In case of S3 bucket, it's just a storage. So we can say, okay, AWS, please provide me with the storage where I can store all of my files. And I want to pay only for the files which is stored on this particular place, let's say. But yeah, this place actually called bucket. And AWS will just do it. So you'll be provided with the public link, which will be publicly accessible if you want, but if you don't, so it may be hidden only inside of your local network, or you can set the permission policies as you wish. Actually. And actually, this is also how DynamoDB works. So you just say, okay, AWS, please create the non-relational database for me. And you don't need to care about the amount of data which is stored in this database. You're just creating this database and filling it with the data and removing the data as you don't need it. And you're paying only for the amount of the data which is stored inside this database and for the amount of requests to this database. So every put or get request would be also, you'll be also charged for all of them. And I'm not sure if it's something visible in this picture. Let me have a look at the chat. Should that be later? Yeah, nothing about the quality of the picture. So yeah, I will try to share this presentation with you a bit later in the Discord channel, and I think the quality will be a bit better just to understand what is written inside. because it's quite important to understand how AWS works and how can they benefit from using the AWS, from leveraging all of these resources. Now, let's have a look on what AWS stands for. So AWS is Amazon Web Services. So I think the most of you is knowledge about the Amazon company, but yeah, one way forward about why don't we try and run the cloud provider, and they just did it. Sorry. Right now, the AWS is at least 33 regions. Actually, I'm not sure about this particular number, but it's something like this. And by region, I mean not just not just a new data center inside some particular city, but usually we're called about the okay, yeah, actually they have Frankfurt and okay, yeah. So let's think about the regions as a cities, and all of these regions you may find whenever you register your account in the AWS, and this is a place where you can you feel free to choose all of the regions, which will be more convenient for you to use. Because for some of you, it may be Europe, some of you, it may be America, and there is also Japan, Oceania, and actually there is, yeah, really lots of regions. And choose the region which is more convenient for you, because which is closer to you, because you will feel much less latency, and it will be much more convenient for you to use it. And inside of these regions, they also have the availability zones. So maybe let me give you an example. So one of the regions is called EU Frankfurt 1 or something like this. And that just means, but in Frankfurt, they already have a region. Under this region, we don't have just the data center with AWS services, but we have several data centers. And all of these data centers doesn't have almost any relations in the electricity, in the internet providing, and so on. So they're just independent. And this is just made to give you an option to make as stable, redundant, and fault-tolerant application as you can. So you can think about like this. So you may have your application running inside one region. Let's say all of your customers are located in the Frankfurt. And your application may be running in the availability zone A in the Frankfurt and availability zone B in the Frankfurt. And whatever happens with one of these availability zones, your application will be already accessible. And actually, this is up to you to make these applications running all the time, or you may create your own custom scripts, which will be responsible to have a look at the health check of every availability zone and run the rest of availability zones only in case of something happens with the first one, let's say. But yeah, all of this done just to make your application as fault tolerant as possible. And I think one more thing worth mentioning, but if we are talking about the regions, some of the resources may be not available in some regions. So some of the usually it's and all these regions somewhere in the USA making the new resources a bit faster than the rest of the regions. And So in this case, for example, if you want to run the most recent EC2 instance, so it's good to try at the somewhere at the USA, US East or US West, somewhere for but not in Europe. And some of the resources may be not available in some regions at all. And next, if you're talking about the services in the AWS, there's more than 2,000 of them. So if we can think about, okay, so AWS may have something like virtual servers and maybe database and something like this, but no, AWS have lots of resources, which are usually, let's say, serverless and just resources which will try to deploy your application for you. So you will just need to click into buttons and your application will be accessible worldwide. And this is, I think, in my opinion, is a kind of good thing. Because if you don't want to try to understand how it works and why it works like this, and you just have a bit much more money, you can just deploy your application with just the clicks and don't care almost about nothing. So you will just deploy your application and the rest will be on the shoulders of the AWS. So let's move on. And this slide should answer your questions on how can I deploy my application on the AWS. So yeah, as I already mentioned, there is more than 200 resources in the AWS, which can help you to solve almost every problem that you will have. It's AI, it's storage, it's compute resources, and actually there's lots of everything. But if you're talking about the deployment itself, you can leverage these resources. So first of all, is AWS Management Console. So whenever you go to the AWS, let me have a look at the link. Oh, it should be something with the region. So if you will just go, I don't know, maybe to the console.aws.amazon.com. The thing you'll see named AWS Management Console. So it's just a UI where you can click on the resources and just click on the create and select a bunch of the parameters for these particular resources, and these resources will be created for you. It's quite cool and maybe convenient if you have just one web page which you're not usually maintaining, but just want to run it today and forget about it for a month or so. But if you're talking about some kind of automations or some kind of continuous integration, continuous delivery, and so on, the rest of the tools may help us. So first one is AWS Command Line Interface. You can just go to your terminal if you're running Ubuntu or macOS, or maybe if you're running Windows, you can also install the AWS CLI. So this is a place where you can say, okay, AWS create EC2 instance with some particular name in some particular region and so on. And this is how you will create your EC2 instance, your virtual server, which will be accessible for you and maybe publicly if you'll say so. And you can create all of the resources using this AWS CLI. Next one, the pink cloud with bunch of cubes is AWS CDK. And this is one which we will use in this course. So CDK is cloud development tool. No, CDK, cloud development, just something. Sorry, I just forgot this one, the last one. So this is one we will leverage during this course. So it will make us possible to create in our resources using not just command line commands, but the language which we will choose. It may be TypeScript, it may be Python. I'm not sure about the rest actually, but there is a bunch of them. So you will have a chance to choose which one you will use to deploy your resources in the AWS. And the last one on the schema is Terraform. We will not talk about the Terraform on this course, but hopefully later this year we will run another session of the AWS DevOps course where we will talk about the Terraform. So Terraform is just a tool which can, with, with its Terraform special syntaxes, it will create resources inside the cloud providers. So it may be AWS, Azure, GCP, so whatever. But now we are talking about the AWS. And as you can see on the left side, all of these four boxes end in the AWS API box. What does it mean? So actually it means that all of the uh, resources in the AWS can be called, or information about all these resources may be held by the API calls. So you will need just to authenticate, and it will be possible to create whatever you want with your AWS account. So you will have a chance to create resources inside of this one, delete resources from this one, or get information about all of your resources deployed on your AWS account. And all of these API calls will be, as I mentioned here, as a cloud. So all of your API calls will reach the cloud in the AWS, which is quite cool, I think. Okay, let's move on. Let's have a look about different types of deployments. So if you are talking about deployment, as I already mentioned, you can just deploy your application on your local virtual machine or on your local laptop or local, I don't know, server, or whatever you have. So it just it's not just a physical server which is located on your current place. So in my case, it's just a laptop. So, and in this case, we can talk about it as a monolith type of deployment. So in this case, we just have one server, or it may be actually two or three, whatever. But it should be the physical servers and the database. So, for example, another application connecting to the database, and this database is a server which is running, let's say, a SQL service or something like this. And if you're talking about the monolith, it actually maybe have some benefits. So in case something is happening with your application, you will always have an option to just log into your local server and try to understand what's happening inside. And you will be already acknowledged if it's on fire, or maybe it's just a local electricity outage or whatever. But from these benefits, it have more, I think, disadvantages, because all of the routine about take care of this server is on your shoulders, and it's your routine. So you'll be responsible to run all of the patches, to update all of the applications if there is any vulnerability found or something like this. You'll be responsible to remove this one, to somehow, I don't know, upgrade your server or upgrade the some programs tools or something like this. And also leveraging the AWS, we can also deploy the monolith applications running, for example, EC2 instances, or maybe a bunch of EC2 instances. And this instances may be connected to the RTS. So in this case, our application is pretty hard to scale and pretty hard to maintain in the scope of long time. And maybe if we will talk about the price, it will be also a bit more costly, just because you will need to buy your own server, and the server should not be just for your needs. You should look a bit ahead, because your application will scale, your application will be updated sometimes, and you will need a bit more resources from your server. So you can just buy a cheap server and run your application on it. So you should always look ahead. But now we can talk about the containerization. Why containerization is cool? Containerization is a technology, let's say, where you can wrap your application inside the container. And this container will have the particular operating system, particular list of the tools or versions of your, for example, programming language or something like this. So it may be Python or something like this, but you will always have in your container the special version of this Python. And you will always have in this container a special version of, let's say, database or something like this. And you can just make your container, create it, build it, and deploy it on every machine which is supporting the containers. So it may be virtual machine, it may be your local machine, it doesn't matter. Because if we are talking about, let's say, Docker, yeah, so you're just running Docker on your machine or the machine or virtual machine of your friend, wife, or whoever. So your container will be the same everywhere, because it will have the same data, same operating system, and all of the same programs which is necessary to run your application. And maybe looking a bit ahead, yeah, we also have not just containers, but we have container orchestration tools, which is, as I already mentioned today, is Kubernetes. So Kubernetes is a tool which is responsible to manage your containers. So we just create the container inside itself and just having a look for this one and just making sure from time to time, from day to day, whether this container is healthy. And if something's happening with this one, Kubernetes is just recreating this container if it's possible. Yep. And as already mentioned on the slide, there is managed Kubernetes cluster with nodes provisioned by AWS. Oh, it's Margate. It should be Fargate. Yeah, there is a service named Fargate in the AWS. Sorry for this mistake. You'll for sure correct this one. Okay. And the next one, which we will talk the most actually during this course, is serverless. Imagine you don't want to take care of these containers. Imagine you don't want to create these containers and store them somewhere and run them somewhere. Imagine you'd like to make your application running only during it's needed. So let's imagine the situation. So you have the online shop and you're launching tomorrow. And tomorrow you will have 0 customers. Day later, or maybe a week later, you will still have 0 customers. And maybe in a month, you will have 10 or maybe even 100 of customers or something like this. So it will increase, but not drastically. It will increase step by step, and you will see it. So you will see what you have. Okay, so right now I have, let's say, let's say 50 orders. It will give you the understanding that your online shop is starting to work, but you don't want to pay for the resources which is running your web page. And this is where serverless coming into the stage. So we will better actually see during the course, but I will try to explain it. So imagine you have a code of your application, and you can deploy it in the AWS as a serverless resource. So you will say to the AWS, okay, AWS, here is my code, but make it running only when you will have any requests. And AWS will say, okay, why not? So I will just store your code. And in case something will trigger your web page. So for example, my awesome online shop.com, I will try to get your code and show to the customer your web page. And that's it. And you will pay only for the time which is needed for the AWS to create your, let's say that create, but maybe to compile your application and show it to the customer. And what is the most outstanding thing about this one is what it can not compile your web page entirely by the request, but it may compile, let's say, the front page. And then if customer clicked on some particular special pages, the AWS will compile the rest of them. So I think it's kind of cool. And it will be not necessary for you to pay for all these resources if you are not, if you don't have any customers. So right now our shop may operate without any costs, without any spending. Okay, let's say almost not any spendings, because if we are talking about the DNS, if you would like to have your special URL, you should pay for from month to month. But if you are talking about the computer sources, and in this case, it will be Lambda functions. So you will just deploy your application as a Lambda function, and this Lambda function will be triggered only if it was triggered by your customer or by yourself. Actually, it's also possible. And if you're talking about the Lambda functions, I don't know if you can see my pointer on the screen, but the Lambda functions is the one which is Lambda-shaped orange square. And on the right hand, you can see the database, but the database with the lightning, and this is actually the DynamoDB. DynamoDB is always the same. So you will have the database provisioned by the AWS, and you will pay only for the information which is stored on this database. And it's up to you. So if you will remove something, if you will add something, or maybe it's for your customers, if you create any kind of orders or something like this, they all may be stored in the DynamoDB. And in the bottom, you can see the well-known S3 bucket. So it's just a storage where you can store the files. So it may be just some pictures for your online store, or just something like it. Just actually just whatever. And this is approach which we will leverage during this course. So we'll try to deploy in our application in the serverless pattern. Let's move on. And as I already mentioned, is probably, sorry, it's probably the main AWS resources. It's IAM, so Identity and Access Management. Whenever you're creating your account, you'll be provided with the, let's say, root credentials. So root credentials meaning you can do just whatever you want with this account. And first thing you need to think about is to make the multi-function authentication for this one. Because if your root account will be stolen, just if just something will happen with your root account, it will be crucial. Because using this root account, someone can create a bunch of resources, and you will be charged for all of these resources. And it's kind of pain to make AWS understand that, okay, my account was stolen, please forgive me for this one. I will not do it once again. So yeah, please, whenever you're creating your first account in the AWS, please create the multifunction authentication. It's quite easy. So you will need just to install the I would call something like Google Authenticator or something like this on your cell phone, and just to pair your AWS account with this MFA tool. And in this case, okay, I will not explain this one because I think all of you know about what MFA is. The next important thing is non-root account. And as I already mentioned, if you will lose, just for some reason, you will lose your root account, it will be very crucial. So it's already recommended to create non-root account inside the AWS. Once you already get your root account, just go to the AWS and create in the IAM service non-root account. This account will have a bit less privileges than the root one. You will still have an option to create resources to destroy the resources, to log into this account on your CDK CLI, which is whatever you want. But if something happens with this account, you will always have your root account to deactivate this non-root account. So it's quite important. And once again, even for this non-root account, please apply the MFA. So you will have from one cell phone, from this Google Authenticator application, you will have an option to create 2 entry points. So one will be for root account and the second one for the second one. It's very important. And going a bit further about the AWS IAM, it's not only about creating the users on the AWS, it's also about some policies. So let's say let's say you want to create your web service. So you're creating the EC2 instance. It's kind of virtual machine, and this virtual machine is running your web service. But for some reason, you will need just to store your pictures, store your data in the S3 bucket. And to make your EC2 instance talk to the S3 bucket, it's not necessary to provide your EC2 instance with some credentials or something like this. You can just create some policies, IAM policies in the AWS, which will grant your EC2 instance to talk to your S3 bucket. And it will be enough for them to authenticate about each other and to get the necessary information from each other. And I think it's just a peak of the iceberg, because there's a bunch of resources, which is lots of resources which require the IAM policies to talk to each other. And especially in this course, we will also have a look at how the Lambda functions and our serverless Lambda functions getting the policies to get the objects from the S3 buckets. So you need to understand that IAM is one of the main and one of the most important resources in the AWS, which provides you an option to not just give the access to the AWS for yourself, but just to make your resources make accessible to each other. It's not always necessary for sure, but still, sure, you can create the virtual machine, which will just directly connect to the database. That's okay. But if you have the more secure option, then security is on top usually on the companies. So why not use it? So why not just try and to understand how it works? And let's talk about the kind of homework. Let me have a look. Yeah, it's the last slide for my presentation. And I think let me briefly show you how it looks like on the AWS Management Console. So you will understand what should you see and what should you do with it. Okay, so let me go ahead and share my screen. Let me rearrange it a bit. Yep, like this. So this is what you can see in here. So as I already mentioned, there is a bunch of the regions. There's not all of them, because some of them are disabled in my account. But as you can see, yeah, there is United States, Asia Pacific, Canada, Europe, Middle East, so whatever you want. So just choose the one which fits, which actually closer to you, because you'll feel much less latency in this. And next, I can just go to the search bar whenever I created my account. So I logged into the main page, and this is what you can see my root account. Now I'm going to the search bar, and I'm searching for IAM, manage access to the AWS resources. And this is a place where as I already mentioned, I can create users, I can create roles, I can create policies. Also, there's user groups. Let's talk about them one by one. So if we're talking about the user groups, let's imagine that you have a team. You have a team of, let's say, 2 developers, 3 DevOps engineers, and for some reason there is 10 Q&A engineers. And there is not just lots of people, right? Changing quite usually. So almost every week, almost every month at least. Okay, so you can create just this group and apply some policies to this particular group. So in my case, it's just administrators, which is actually mine. So and this group will have this bunch of policies. So just an administrator access. And if we have some, let's say, new employee or just someone joined or someone left in our team, we don't need to create the policies, these policies. But in this case, it's just administrator access. But if we are talking about some more granular, so let's say for policies for some particular resources, or maybe for some particular actions for some particular resources, it also may maybe like this. So it will be a bit more complicated. So it's usually recommended to create the user group, apply the policies to this group, and then create the users and apply these users to this particular group. So in my case, just okay, it's the Platinum, which I applied to the administrator group, and that's it. But if we are talking about the roles, this is a place where we can find all of the roles which have been pre-created by the AWS or which were created manually, which is necessary to make it our resources talk to each other. So as you can see from the naming, there is AWS service role for autoscaling. So that means that this role is necessary for the autoscaling resource to create the EC2 instances if it's necessary. And yeah, there's also an option in the AWS, but you can auto scale your resources if you want. But we will not talk about it actually because it's not the serverless approach. It's rather monolith because you will have these virtual machines and you'll be responsible for the all of them. And if you're talking about the policies, you can also go straight here and have a look at what is this policy about. So actually, it's just a JSON file which explains to the AWS resource what can this resource do or what it can do, because it can be allow or disallow, and it can be some particular actions. In this case, it's just asterisk, so I can just do whatever I want with the API gateway. And if we are talking about the resources, there is also asterisk asterisk, meaning what it may be AWS gateway in any region on my account. And what I really encourage you to do, so first of all, create a user group, which is called administrators, and apply the necessary permissions to this one. Necessary policies. You can just apply administrator access, or you can just apply it as much as you need, because on the next session we will talk about the S3 bucket, about the CloudFront or something like this, and it will be actually enough for your non-root account just to have the access to two of its resources. It will be more granularly and maybe more proper way to secure your account from any particular attacks. Once you've done these groups, go ahead and create the user. Whenever you created the user, and then you will log in to this user and open the IAM right here, you will see that your account is not secured with the MFA. So please go ahead, click on 2 buttons or 3, I actually don't remember, and just make sure that your account is secured with the MFA. It's really, really important. And once you're done with creating another user, just apply this group to this user, and you'll be good to go with this account to go. and don't touch, and you will not need to touch your root account to create and pass all of the scores. Next thing I'll suggest you to do, so once you're done with the creation of the account, using your root account is very important because non-root account will not have access to the budget. But with your root account, go to the upper right side of the screen and open Billing and Cost Management. Okay, and if you open it, you will need to go, should be budget, I guess. Yep, you should go to the budgets and create the budget in here. This is the place where you'll be prompted with some options. Let's just use it's simplified. Zero spent budget. Yeah, let's hold it intact. And email. Okay, you will need to provide your email address, and you'll need to click the create budget. What will it do? So it will make a notification for you whenever you will have any spendings on your account. Even though we are using the free tier accounts, I will talk about the free tier accounts a bit later, but still, you may have some charges for just some resources. For example, you may create the resource which is not in the free tier. So, for example, it may be just kind of big virtual machine. So only EC2 instances, only almost the smallest one is accessible, available in the free tier account. But if you'll create a big virtual machine, you will be charged for this one because it's not included in the free tier account. And in case there is some spendings, will be some charges will be created from your account. You'll be notified of this one, about this one, and you will have an option to create the immediate actions. So, for example, delete this instance or delete this particular resource. So just get rid of them. Just don't be overcharged for the resources. And once you're done, yeah, you will be provided this notification if you will exceed this free tier, or how it's called, zero spend budget account. It's very important actually. So pay attention to this one because I'm not talking about this one because we will have any spendings during this course. But if you will finish this course and you will forget to remove these resources, and you will remember about your account, let's say only after 3 years, you'll find out that your account is already charged with the resources which are already running for 1 year of the free tier and 2 of non-free tier. And that actually means that all of these resources will be, you'll be charged for all of them. So it's very important to set this zero spend budget notification. Please pay attention to this one and make sure you click on this. But let's talk about the bright side. We have a free tier. Whenever you're creating your AWS account, you are provided with the free tier account for 1 year. What does it mean? I'm not sure if there's something in this in my account because it's already exceeded this one. But whenever you create in your account, you will find in this free tier tab, you will find all of the resources which is available for you for free. And actually, there is lots of them. All of the resources which we will leverage during this course will be on the free tier, so you will be charged for any of them. But keep in mind one thing. So if we will just go and say AWS EC2 instance free tier, let's go to this one. Let's have a look how it works. So yeah, as you can see, we are provided with 750 hours of EC2 instance per month.
And actually, if it's just enough to run one of your EC2 instance, only one EC2 instance, only one EC2 instance on your account for 1 month. If you're running two of these EC2 instances, that means that you're running twice the 750 hours per month. And you will be charged for all of the time, which exceeds these 750 hours. So if you're having one instance, that's okay. If you're having two instances, you have only half of the month for both of these instances. And for sure, if you have three instances, you have only 250 hours of these instances to be created in your account for free. For the rest of the time, you'll need to pay. So keep it in mind and pay close attention to this one. And especially if we are talking about the scores, so we will leverage the Amazon S3 bucket, which is 5 gigabytes of storage per month for free, which is enough for us. We will also use the relational database, which is enough also for us. So we'll create just one instance of the relational database in the AWS, and it will fit all of our needs. DynamoDB also. So we will have the DynamoDB database, and 25 gigabyte is more than enough for us. So we will not have that much of data, actually. And the Lambda functions. And it's 1 million requests per month. I don't know. Maybe I think it's still too much. Yeah, but it's enough for us if you have a free tier account to run this course and don't get charged for any of these resources. But still, please pay attention. It will be very helpful for you, and if you are planning to work with the AWS further, even after this course. So it's very important for you to understand what's the price for all these resources, because I think you will be the one who will offer this approach to your customer and say, okay, why don't we using all of these virtual machines and so on? Why don't we just go to the serverless? And your customer will ask you, first of all, so what does it cost? And it will be a proper question. And you will need to answer this to your customer. So pay attention to all of these resources whenever you are using them, just to understand what's the price for all of them in case you don't run your free tier account. And I think the last topic I want to cover for today is in our repository. So this is a place where you could find all of our tasks. So right now you can see there is 10 of them, as I already mentioned. And first one is just cloud introduction. And let's have a look at this one. So there is a README, which explains the goals and topics which is covered by this module, and also have some materials. So there's an English and Russian ones, and actually I will also suggest you to find the lectures from the previous session, which will be held at the previous summer or something like this. So you can find all of them on the YouTube channel. So just type on the YouTube Learning Scope School English channel, and I think you can find them by AWS developer or something like this. And you will be good. So the second file is okay. Let's have a look at the task first. So task explains what should you do. What should you do on this particular module? Task one will be about joining in our community channel, and it will be really good if you will join this one. I already mentioned that Discord is a place where you can seek for help and that you can provide the help to your fellow students, and where you can see all of the notification about the upcoming events and so on. So yeah, maybe I not already mentioned it, but if you already joined the Discord channel, please get the AWS Developer 2025 Q1 role in the role assigner channel, just to not miss any notifications about this course. registered this course, there is already a correct link. I will share it a bit later in the Discord as well. And then you'll need to revise what is REST about, how it works, how to create a basic REST API service using Express. I think it's more Node.js special. Have a look at the on-premise architecture, cloud architecture. Okay, we already talked about this one. Have a look at the application. So yeah, here we go. React front app. This application been created a couple of years ago, so it may have some vulnerabilities and so on. And even in the previous year, to install it and just to try it out, just to try to understand how it works, I'll need to use force flag to make it running because it's so many vulnerabilities inside. But for academic purposes, I think it's enough. So yeah, just don't hesitate. Just Google this problem if you will have. Go ahead. Clone this repository. Yeah, it's necessary because we will need to create some minor changes to this application. And blah, 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 e-commerce solution. Registering the AWS following the best practices, as I already mentioned. So you will need not just to create the root account, but also the non-root account, which I'll suggest you to use during this course. Create the IAM user in the site. Okay, yeah, this is already mentioned. Using CLI, connect to your AWS account and get created IAM user information. So you will need to download the AWS tool to your local machine. I think it should be some kind of package for the Windows, but if you are running Ubuntu, you can just install it from the repository. So if you're on Linux, for sure this tool is available in the package managers. And if you are talking about the macOS, so feel free to use Homebrew to install the AWS CLI tool. Wait for next text and help us in the chat if we have any issues, for sure. And I think it should be, I think this one should be placed in all of the modules. I'm sure I will have a look if it is. Even though you have probably this free account, it's usually a good idea to keep in mind. Yeah, this is what I already mentioned. So always pay attention to all of these resources which we will use during this course, and always make sure that you understood what you are doing and how much it costs. It's really important. And maybe one more thing worth mentioning, beside the AWS and so on. So feel free to use ChatGPT. Feel free to use any LLMs or just whatever you want. But please make sure that you understand what are you doing. Because if you're talking about the application, if you are talking about the development, I know it's such a crucial part, but if you're talking about this one and you're just deploying your application on your local machine and you're just make sure that it's working and so on. But if we are talking with the ChatGPT or just any other LLM, if you are asking this one to create the resource for the AWS, this LLM will not be responsible to pay for all of its mistake. You'll be responsible for it. So whenever you're copying the code from the ChatGPT, so make sure you're exactly understanding what this code does, just to not create any unnecessary resources or the resources which is not allowable by the free tier account. It's very important. So usually it's just enough to just read through this code and understand what this code is pretty aligned with what is written in the let's say hello world by Lambda or CDK or just whatever. So just read the documentation, go to ChatGPT and try to understand the response. It's very crucial. And if you're working on the deployment, if you're working as a DevOps engineer, as a systems engineer, it's very, very, very important to understand what you're doing. At this point, account overview. I think this one I already mentioned. So we'll need to create an account, secure our account with MFA, and set the budget, service control policies. Yep, key takeaways. Yeah, that's it. Okay, so 2 minutes. We'll have a look at our course itself in the Upper School. So first one will be just an Autodesk. You will need to open Autodesk, open task, it should work now, and start the task. You will need just to answer all of these questions and click submit. Even 1% of the points is, I think, enough. So there is a modifier for this task, so it will be not that important. So please take your time and try to read all of these questions and try to answer all of these questions and try to understand what's happening inside. But for the rest of the tasks, we will have the cross-check. So you will need to, unfortunately, I don't have this. Okay, I will send you the documentation about this one. So mostly, and I think on the next lecture, I will show you how it works. So you will need to create the code, submit it to the repository, push it to your repository, and submit your pull request to the cross-check. So just to, let's say, submit your task for this particular model. And then you will be assigned with 4 students, which work you will need to check. And your work will also be checked by the bunch of students. So this is how cross-check works. Yeah, for sure. For the next lecture, which will be held, I think, on the next week. Yeah. I will show you how it works. So don't care about this, about it that much. And I think at this point that's it. And maybe as a bit of spoiler, next week with the AWS architecture, we will run the especially for you, the session about the AI in the AWS. So sometimes you don't need to go to the ChatGPT. You can just open the Amazon Q and ask all of the questions that bothers you right inside the AWS console. So this is how it looks like. Come on. Yeah. So this is just a simple chat. So you can ask all of the questions about the AWS resources, how to provision them. Maybe also the questions about the cost is reliable for this one, but I'm not sure. Actually, you can try. So feel free to use this one. But yeah, I will write the additional announcement about this one in the Discord channel. I think now we can go to your questions. Oh, let me scroll chat a bit. Let me rearrange my windows. Okay, yeah, some weird links which I sent. Okay, so the first one, where can we find the link for the presentation slides? I will share this presentation in the Discord channel. Not sure where, but I will. Yeah, and I will let you know in the announcements. I will share all of the links which I provided in this chat, and I will additionally share the this presentation. Don't know how it will work, but yeah. We'll create some channel in Discord. I'm not sure if it's if this question is related to something else, but we already have a channel in the Discord, so it's called the AWS Developer RU and EN, depending on the language which you prefer. So we are already good to go to the Discord and have a conversation with your fellow students. Salesforce is a yeah. Thank you for your suggestions. Bristol, Netlify. Oh, I'm not sure actually. Never used neither of these resources, so unfortunately I can say. Possible to watch this live video later also. Yeah, this video will be saved on this YouTube account, so you can always go to this one. And also, I'll suggest you to have a look at the videos from the previous session, because sometimes they may be quite helpful, and somewhere I show maybe a bit more than I should. So yeah, you may have a bit of answer, a lot of answers for your questions during this course in the previous lectures. After the end of the test. Such a good question. You can ping me in the Discord channel, and we will try to have a look if you have any concerns. We will try to understand what was wrong and how can I help you to understand what was wrong. Pay for traffic. Yeah, good notification. Some of the resources you're paying not just for using these resources, but also for some, let's say, related activities for these resources. So in case of S3, it will be also charged for the traffic, which is, so for example, you need to download and you need to upload the picture. It's the different kind of traffics. And I'm not sure for which of you will be charged and for which you will not. But it's a bad place to appeal to the documentation of the AWS and try to understand and have a look how it works. But if you have concerns, always feel free to reach me in the Discord, so I will try to help you as soon as possible. I was trying to complete this course by myself on the GitHub. Okay, let's try to do this one. I was trying to complete this course by myself on the GitHub prepper path, but the outdated lessons, so I constantly get stuck in the course. Usually, actually, I don't know about the developers, but as a systems engineer, whenever I have some issues, some concerns, or some questions about how it works, I usually appeal to the documentation. So if I have some issues with the Terraform, so I go into terraform.com and trying to understand how Terraform works and what is expected. If we are talking about the code itself, so I think the best places is the videos in these repositories and also videos from the previous lectures of this course, so which will be held, as I already mentioned, around a year ago. So where you can find all of the explanations for all of these tasks. But also we'll meet with you each week where I will try to explain what is expected from you and how can you achieve it. Is there any delay when you ticket? I think this question is related at the serverless approach, and yeah, sure, there's delay. But this delay is usually not much bigger than you are running your application on the on some particular virtual machine. Because let's say your virtual machine is located on some data center, and all of the customers, depending of the distance from this data center, will have much more and more and more and more latency for each kilometer, because it's just a physics. So when our data is traveling through the wires as a light or as an electronic impulse or just something like this, and from each of a step, they fill in the latency. But if we're talking about AWS, the cool thing is, first of all, is but this code is, even if it's located on the virtual machine, on the same virtual machine, but we are looking at it as just a piece of function which we can trigger, which we can run. The data from your application may also be stored on the edge locations. And this is a thing which we will talk on the next lesson, on the next lecture. We will talk about the cloud front, and we will talk about the S3 bucket. How can we deploy in our application and make it available with the same latency from every part of this world? Will I be able to fully train? And okay, let's have a look at this one. Will be able to fully train, pass all this from Belarus. Restrictions on the part. Unfortunately, there's a restriction from the AWS for creating the AWS account from some locations. And as I know, Belarus is in the list. So you will not be able to create your AWS account. But this is crucial for this course to understand how it works and just to try all this out. So it's very crucial. So they will need to maybe find a way to create this account. But yeah, without account, it's not possible. Okay. Notification about the quality of my slides. I'm sorry. This presentation is my big part. What kind of permissions do we need for the first task? Then actually, I don't know if we need any for the first task because it's just a test, and we don't need to create anything. But you can have a look at if you want to have a look at your own account in the AWS, and you would like to create the account, with which one it will be possible to run some CLI commands to get information about your root account or non-root account. So have a look at something which contains IAM and this action named get. I think it would be enough for you just to run CLI commands to get the information about your AWS account. Next one. How to shut down automatically our service when they cross. I know there is an option, and actually I found this option only today because previously when I've been creating my account a few years ago, there were no such an option to just close something. But now, yeah, you can have an actions for the budget exceed. What does it mean? So you can tell to the AWS, but okay, if my if I only charged with some amount of money, with some special amount of money, please do some actions. And SSO, it's really possible to do, but unfortunately, I don't know how to do it. So the best thing to start, I think, is whenever you're creating your budget constraint alert. So this is a place where you can try to find some actions on this. But I'm not sure if it's necessary during this course because we will talk and we will use and leverage all of the resources, which is in the free tier. So we will not be charged for any of the resources during this course for 1 year. Actually, yeah, keep it in mind because in 1 year, all of these resources will be will stop becoming free for you. Does it make sense to use logo stack on this day? I don't know, actually. I just read some bulletins about this one, but I've never used this one. So I'm not sure if it will be possible to provide your application to your fellow students just because it will be not publicly available. But even if you have the public IP address, I'm not sure if these resources will work in the same way as it does in the AWS. But you can try, and actually, I will try to support you in all of the attempts. So please feel free to reach me, and we can try to understand how it works, and let me try to help you in this one. Will we discuss the difference between DynamoDB and DocumentDB? We will have a session about the databases in the AWS. Yeah, but we will not touch the DocumentDB in this course. We'll only work with the DynamoDB. So yeah, we will talk about what DocumentDB is, but we will not talk about the differences or maybe some advantages from one to another. Oh, sorry. Maybe it's more frequent asked questions. Just one more time to check. Will resources be used during the course for which I can be charged money? No. Likely no. But only okay. As I already mentioned, so you will have 1 million Lambda requests per month for free. If you will exceed this limit, so for example, you will create 1,000,001 requests to your Lambda function, you will be charged with something like 1 cent or something like this. Actually, it's depending on the length of this Lambda function being triggered. But yeah, I think no. Because on the previous sessions, no one been charged with any money. Only the students who, for some reason, just created the storage, and the storage was fulfilled with the huge amount of data which exceed the 5 gigabytes. And yeah, in this case, you will be charged as well because you're exceeding the limit. And this is why I encourage you to read and try to understand what of this, how much of the resources is included in all of these 3 tiers. I've just did a long time ago. Unfortunately, no. Because the free tier is only liable for the 1 year since the account created. You also can create the new one with the different payment methods, with different phones specified, but yeah, the same one is not possible. Can I delete a freeze my account after completing the course to prevent possible frauds and attacks? Could I disconnect the create code from my account? I think the best option in this way will be to follow the manual, which is, I think, already published in our repository, and it called something like cleanup.md. So, and it pretty good explaining how can you make sure that all of the resources that you created in this course is removed, and to make it the understanding that you will not be charged just for anything. And I think if you're talking about the payment method, I think, yeah, you can just maybe assign another payment method with the card without any money or something like this. But yeah, I will try to make sure that all of you who reach this course till the end is removed all of the resources which for which you may be charged further on. When does 12 months start to count? They register on AWS, start using the specific service. Whenever you create in your AWS account, the 12 month starts. So yeah, it's not assigned to any kind of resource. So whenever you create in your account, 12 months starts, and in the 12th month, your account will appear to be non-free tier alive. Cross-checking, fair approach, getting scores, because getting certificates means I think, yeah, because why do I love Rolling Scope School is just because Rolling Scope School just tries to build the community, not just give the certificates or something like this. It's just a volunteering community where people try to build communities, and these communities tries to build each other, and people try to help each other. And I think this is a place where we can make some friends and try to make some social links and LinkedIn connections and so on. I think it's quite good, and I really encourage you. And I will repeat it from time to time, but I would like you to be the community. Try to not to make troubles for each one. But if there are some issues, please, before appealing to some rules, try to solve all of these issues by yourself, or maybe reach me and I will try to help you to solve some particular issues. But don't go to something don't go to something personal. So just try to help each other. And this is what Running Scope School tried to create. Okay, next one. How checking out the student test will work? And do we need to provide our API working serverless, or we just provide code? Which test on AWS? Yeah, for sure. A reviewer may try to make DDoS attacks to your application. I don't know actually, but just suggest. I barely can imagine something like this because you will share it with your fellow students, and if something will try to do something like this, please reach me, and we will try to to find someone by IP address and try to exclude the student. But yeah, going back to our topic. So I don't think it's a case. So during the cross check, we will provide in our code just to make it understand what everything is done in this code. And then we will also provide this link. So to make the student who is checking it, to make sure that your application works as expected. So yeah. Um, I don't know. I actually just don't know what to suggest about the DDoS attacks. So yeah, if something will happen, yeah, please reach me and we will try to make something about this. There is no cross-check in the first task. Yeah, there is nothing about the cross-check in the first task. The first task is just a test. So you'll just need to go to the, how it called, have a look, something like auto test. You'll need to go to the auto test and answer 10 or 11 or something like this, simple questions. It would be enough. And yeah, let's say task or homework for the first session is to create your AWS account securely as possible by following the best practices, and try to read and understand what free tier is and how will and how can use it. What is the name of the school? This school doesn't show up. Dominica, I hope you have a chance to connect to our Discord channel. So later today, I will share with all of you all of the links in this presentation. And it will be the place where you can find all of the necessary information about this course. When will be the next lecture? Next lecture we will hold in the week. It will be 10th of the February, where with the employee of the AWS, we will try to showcase you how can we leverage the AWS Q, which is the AI by the AWS, which can drastically help us solving the tasks during this course. Okay, can you show process of something? Okay. Okay, will do. Will do, but on the next week because I found out that on my current account, I can see something like submit task or something like this, just because it's not the user's account, but let's say administrative account. So I will try to create a user account, and on the next session, I will try to show you how can you create a repository, submit it into Run School application, review it, and we will also talk about the negotiations whenever you are not agreed to the score, which is provided to you by your cross-checker. Will do, for sure. That's it from my info today. Oh, it's took a bit longer than expected. How can we get the meeting invite for the next session? Please pay attention to the Discord channel. First of all, you will need to register in the Discord, and then you will need to go to this Discord channel. And I really encourage you to go to the, how it's called? Let me have a look. It's something like role assigner or something like this. Come on. Do something. It's it's a role assigner channel, and in this role assigner channel, you will find the button, the green button, which is called AWS Developer 2025 Q1. By clicking this, you will get a role. And usually, making any announcements in the Discord channel, I'm mentioning this role. So just to make sure that all who want to be notified about the particular events is notified. So yeah, this Discord channel is very, I think, crucial for this course. The place where you can seek for help, the place where you can provide your help, the place where you can find any announcements for the upcoming sessions, for the upcoming events, workshops, and so on. Will be used. Yeah, a bit of shame, but I don't see the difference between JS. Unfortunately, I'm very far from the JS itself. But for sure, we will use the Node.js. But it feels like that on the schema, we also had the Nest.js. So if I remember correctly, Nest.js is kind of framework or something like this. So yeah, we will use both of them if it's possible. I don't know. Let's have a look at it a bit later. So I promise we don't need to make significant changes to the existing application. So we will focus on the deployment process of our application. So yeah, we will not, let's say, use these kind of. But if we are talking about the Lambda functions, you can feel free to choose any language you want. Okay. I don't see any more questions, but if you will have any, please always feel free to ask them in the Discord. So usually I'm here 24/7 and trying to solve all of your issues. And if you will have any further questions, please feel free to ask them in the Discord channel. I will try to help you as soon as possible, or maybe fellow students will catch up and help you. So yeah, that would be very great. Once again, encouraging you to be as active as possible to get the RS activist role in our Discord channel. And see you in a week. Thank you, and bye. See ya.